The smoke in the cantina was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jake Murphy wiped grease from his hands with an old rag and looked around the crowded room. He had come here for a quick drink after fixing another broken ship engine, but now he wished he had stayed in his workshop. The cantina was full of the usual crowd. Smugglers sat in dark corners counting credits. Mercenaries cleaned their weapons at sticky tables. Traders argued loudly about prices and shipping routes. The air smelled of cheap alcohol and unwashed bodies. Jake was about to leave when he heard crying. In the far corner, a woman sat alone at a small table. She was not human. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to glow softly in the dim light. Her hair was silver and moved like it was underwater even though there was no breeze. Her eyes were large and purple, filled with tears. She was Altarian. Jake had seen a few of them before. They were known across the galaxy for being beautiful and having special mental powers. They could read thoughts and move things with their minds. Most people were afraid of them or wanted to use them, but this woman looked broken and desperate. She held something in her shaking hands. As Jake watched, she stood up and walked to the center of the cantina. The crowd slowly went quiet as they noticed her. "Please," she said in a voice that was musical but full of pain. "I need help. My daughter is missing." Someone laughed. Then another person joined in. Soon half the cantina was laughing at her. "Another sob story," said a big man with scars on his face. "What are you selling, Blueskin?" The woman's face turned red with shame, but she kept talking. "My name is Zara Velthani. 3 months ago, raiders came to our colony on the Outer Rim. They took many people. They took my daughter." She held up what was in her hands. It was a small device that showed a moving picture. In the picture was a young girl who looked like a smaller version of the woman. The girl was maybe 10 years old, with the same blue skin and silver hair. She was smiling and laughing. "Her name is Lyra," Zara said. "She is all I have left. The authorities have given up looking for her. They say she is probably dead, but I know she is alive. I can feel it. So what do you want from us?" asked a woman with metal arms and red eyes. She was a cyborg bounty hunter that Jake had seen around the station before. Zara took a deep breath. "I have hired the best trackers in this sector. I have paid them everything I own. Some of them I have paid with my body, as they demanded. But they all came back with nothing, or they never came back at all." The cantina was completely quiet now. Even the bartender had stopped cleaning glasses to listen. "I am offering the same deal again," Zara continued. "Find my daughter and bring her back to me. I will give you whatever you want. Credits if I had them. My body if that is what you demand, my life if necessary. Just please help me find Lyra." The silence stretched on for a long moment. Then the laughter started again, louder this time. "Lady, you just told us that. The best hunters in the sector could not find your kid," said the scarred man. "What makes you think any of us bottom feeders can do better?" "Because you are my last hope," Zara whispered. More laughter. Someone threw an empty bottle that shattered on the floor near her feet. Zara flinched but did not move away. "Get out." "Of here, Blueskin," shouted someone from the back. "Take your sob story somewhere else." "Yeah, we are not running a charity here," added another voice. Jake watched as tears ran down Zara's face. She looked around the room with desperate eyes, hoping someone would step forward. No one did. They just kept laughing and drinking. Something inside Jake's chest felt tight and angry. He had been fixing broken things his whole life, ships, machines, equipment. But looking at this broken woman, he felt like he needed to fix something more important. He stood up from his table. The cantina went quiet again as everyone turned to look at him. Jake was not impressive to look at. He was average height and build, with brown hair that was starting to go gray. His clothes were old work coveralls stained with oil and dirt. His hands were rough and scarred from years of mechanical work. "I'll help you," Jake said simply. The laughter came back, even louder than before. "You?" The cyborg bounty hunter pointed at Jake with one metal finger. "You are just a grease monkey. What do you know about tracking?" Not much, Jake admitted, but I know about not giving up. He walked across the room to where Zara stood. She looked up at him with confusion and a tiny bit of hope. Can I see the picture? Jake asked gently. With shaking hands, Zara held up the device. Jake looked at the moving image of the little girl. Lyra was playing with some kind of toy, spinning it in the air with her mind while she giggled. She looked happy and innocent and alive. She's beautiful, Jake said. She looks like she has your smile. Fresh. Tears ran down Zara's face, but this time they seemed different. Not just sad, but grateful that someone had actually looked at her daughter as a person instead of just another missing alien. I don't have any credits left, Zara said quietly. The others took everything. If you want my body, as payment. No, Jake said firmly but kindly. I don't want payment. The cantina exploded with noise again. People shouted questions and insults. They could not believe what they were hearing. Then why? Zara asked, confused. Why would you help a stranger for nothing? Jake looked around the room at all the hard faces staring at them. These were people who sold their services to the highest, bidder. People who took what they could get and never gave anything for free. People who had forgotten what it meant to just help someone because it was right. Because you are a mother looking for her child, Jake said. Because that little girl in the picture deserves to go home. And because everyone in this room has forgotten something important. What's that? Asked the scarred man with a sneer. Jake turned to face the crowd. That we are all someone's child. We all have people who would cry if we went missing. And if we don't help each other, who will? The cantina went completely silent. For a moment, some of the hard faces looked uncomfortable, like Jake's words had hit something they had buried deep inside. Then the moment passed and the sneering came back. Pretty words, grease monkey, said the cyborg. But words don't find missing kids. This sector is huge. The girl could be anywhere, could be dead, could be sold to slavers halfway across the galaxy. You have no ship, no weapons, no tracking equipment. What are you going to do? Fix her back to life? Jake ignored the insults and turned back to Zara. Tell me everything. Where did the raiders come from? What did they look like? What kind of ships did they use? Every detail you can remember. The next hour, Zara told her story. 3 months ago, ships had attacked the farming colony where she and Lyra lived. The raiders had been fast and efficient. They took people, not things. Mostly young people and children. The few survivors said the raiders wore no uniforms, and their ships had no markings. The local authorities had investigated for 2 weeks, before giving up. The trail was cold, they said. The raiders could have gone anywhere. Without faster ships or better equipment, there was no way to track them. Jake listened to every word. He asked simple questions. What time of day was the attack? What was the weather like? Were there any unusual sounds or smells? Most people would have thought these details were not important, but Jake had learned that small things often led to big answers. When Zara finished her story, Jake nodded thoughtfully. Okay, he said. I'll need a few days to ask around and gather information. Can you stay on the station? I have nowhere else to go, Zara said. But Jake, that is your name, right? Jake, I need you to understand something. Everyone who has tried to help me has failed. Good people have died trying to find Lyra. I could not bear it if... I'm not going to die, Jake said with a small smile. I'm too stubborn for that. And I'm going to find your daughter. As they walked out of the cantina together, the crowd slowly went back to their drinking and arguing, but Jake could feel their eyes on his back. Some looked curious. Others looked like they thought he was an idiot. Maybe he was an idiot. Maybe this was impossible. But as he looked at the hope in Zara's purple eyes, Jake knew he had to try. Because that's what humans did. They tried when others gave up. They cared when others stopped caring, and sometimes that made all the difference. The next morning, Jake woke up early in his small workshop. He had not slept well. His mind kept thinking about Zara and her missing daughter. He made coffee and sat at his workbench, staring at the holographic picture Zara had given him. Lyra looked so young and innocent. Her smile reminded him of his own niece back on Earth. The thought of that little girl being scared and alone somewhere made his chest feel tight with anger. Jake had promised to help, but he was honest enough to know he had no idea where to start. He was just a mechanic. He fixed engines and life support systems, not missing person cases. But he had made a promise, and Jake Murphy always kept his promises. He started by doing what he did best, asking questions and paying attention to details. First person he talked to was Bobby Martinez, an old friend who worked at the docking bay office. Bobby had been keeping track of ships coming and going from the station for 20 years. If anyone knew about unusual traffic patterns, it would be him. 3 months ago? Bobby scratched his gray beard and thought. That was a busy time. Lots of ships moving through. But now that you mention it, there were some weird patterns. What kind of patterns? Jake asked. Well, there was this one company that started sending ships through real regular, like the Nexus Mining Consortium. They said they were shipping geological samples from the outer rim to their processing centers. Jake felt his first spark of hope. What made that weird? Geological samples don't usually need armed escorts, Bobby said. And they don't usually ship in refrigerated containers with life support systems. Jake's pulse quickened. Life support? Yeah, I thought it was. Strange too. When I asked about it, they said some of their samples were from planets with special atmospheric conditions. Had to keep them fresh for testing. But I've been around mining operations my whole life, Jake. Never seen geological samples that needed to breathe. Jake thanked Bobby and went to find his next source of information. He walked through the station's lower levels, where the cargo handlers and maintenance workers spent their time. These were the people everyone else ignored, but Jake had learned they saw everything. He found Lisa Chang in the cargo inspection office, checking manifests for incoming shipments. Lisa was a small woman with sharp eyes who had been working customs for 15 years. She had a reputation for being thorough and hard to fool. Jake Murphy, she said with a smile when he walked in. What brings you to my corner of the station? Got a shipping problem? Something like that, Jake said. He showed her Lyra's picture. I'm trying to track down some people who might have been shipped off-world about 3 months ago, probably against their will. Lisa's expression became serious. Slavers? Maybe. I heard the Nexus Mining Consortium was moving unusual cargo around that time. Containers with life support systems. Lisa pulled up her computer records and started searching. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she looked through old shipping manifests. Here we go, she said after a few minutes. Nexus Mining. They moved a lot of cargo through here in the past 6 months. Always paid their fees on time, always had their paperwork in order. But Jake could hear something in her voice, but something felt wrong about them. Their cargo containers were always sealed tight. No inspection allowed. They claimed everything was dangerous geological samples that could contaminate the station if opened. Did you believe them? Lisa shook her head. I've inspected thousands of mining shipments. I know what geological samples look like on scanners. These containers showed organic compounds, complex biological signatures like they were carrying living things. Why didn't you report it? I tried, but Nexus had all the right permits. Their paperwork was perfect. My supervisor said I was being paranoid. Lisa looked frustrated. The thing is, Jake, I know the difference between rocks and people. Those containers were not full of rocks. Jake felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. Do you remember where the shipments were going? Different places. But most of them went to the same destination, a mining facility in the Titan Belt, place called Titan's Edge. Jake had heard of Titan's Edge. It was a mining asteroid far from any major shipping lanes, the kind of place where someone could do business without asking too many questions or following too many laws. Lisa, I need to ask you a favor. Can you get me copies of those shipping records? That's against regulations, Jake. I could lose my job. Jake looked at the picture of Lyra again, then showed it to Lisa. This little girl was probably in one of those containers. She's been missing for 3 months. Her mother is going crazy with worry. Lisa stared at the picture for a long moment. When she looked up, her eyes were hard with determination. I'll have those records for you in an hour. But Jake, if you're going after these people, you need to be careful. If they're willing to traffic children, they won't hesitate to kill someone asking too many questions. Jake's next stop was the Pilot's Lounge, a grimy bar where freelance ship crews gathered to look for work. He was looking for someone specific, Rex Morrison, a cargo pilot who had a reputation for being difficult to work with. He found Rex sitting alone at a corner table, nursing a beer and scowling at nothing in particular. Rex was a big man with graying hair and arms covered in tattoos. He had been flying cargo ships for 30 years and had strong opinions about everything. Rex Morrison? Jake sat down across from him without being invited. Who's asking? Rex's voice was rough from too many years of recycled ship air and cheap whiskey. Jake Murphy. I work on ship engines here at the station. I need to ask you about a job you might have done a few months ago. I do a lot of jobs. Be more specific. Jake showed him Lyra's picture. I'm looking for this girl. She was taken from a colony in the Outer Rim 3 months ago. I think she might have been shipped through this station. Rex looked at the picture, then at Jake. You a cop? No. Just someone trying to help a mother find her daughter. Rex was quiet for a moment, thinking. 3 months ago, you said? Yeah, probably shipped by the Nexus Mining Consortium. Rex's expression changed. He leaned forward and lowered his voice. I remember that job. Wished I had never taken it. Why? Because they paid me too much money to not ask questions. And in my experience, when someone pays you extra to not ask questions, it's because they're doing something that would make you ask a lot of questions. What kind of cargo was it? Officially? Geological samples bound for processing facilities. But the containers were wrong for geological samples. They had environmental controls, temperature regulation, air recycling systems, and they were really, really heavy. Jake felt his heart beat faster. Heavy how? Like they were full of water. Or people. Geological samples don't weigh that much. Where did you take them? Rex finished his beer and signaled for another. You really want to know? Yes. Titan's Edge. Mining asteroid controlled by the Syndicate. That's when I knew I was in over my head. Jake had heard whispers about the Syndicate. They were a criminal organization that controlled several mining operations in the Outer Rim. They dealt in things that legal companies would not touch. What's the Syndicate? Jake asked. Bad people who do bad things for money. They run mining operations, but everyone knows that's just a cover. They're into smuggling, weapons dealing, and... Rex paused and looked at Lyra's picture again. And trafficking. Trafficking? People trafficking. They capture beings from different species and sell them to collectors, scientists, or anyone else willing to pay, especially beings with special abilities. Jake thought about Zara's psychic powers. Altarians would be very valuable to the wrong kind of people. Rex, I need to get to Titan's Edge. No, you don't. You need to forget this whole thing and go back to fixing engines. Titan's Edge is not a place where mechanics go and come back. I can't forget it. I promised that little girl's mother I would find her. Rex stared at Jake for a long moment. You're serious about this, aren't you? Dead serious. Then you're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. Rex finished his second beer. I know someone who might help you, but you're not going to like what she has to say. Rex led Jake through the station's corridors to the pilot quarters. They stopped at a door marked with the name A. Santos, and Rex knocked. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 30s with short black hair and scars on her left cheek. She was wearing a military-style jumpsuit and had the confident bearing of someone who had seen combat. Rex Morrison, she said with a slight smile. What do you want? Amy, I want you to meet Jake Murphy. Jake, this is Amy Santos, best pilot I know and the only person crazy enough to fly into Syndicate territory. Amy looked Jake up and down. Let me guess. You want to hire me for something stupid and dangerous? Something like that, Jake said. He showed her Lyra's picture and explained the situation. Amy listened without interrupting. When Jake finished, she was quiet for a moment. The Syndicate controls that whole sector, she said finally. They have armed patrol ships and defense platforms. It's not the kind of place you just fly into and ask questions. But you've been there before? Jake asked. Amy's expression became hard. Once. I was military then. We raided one of their facilities and rescued some prisoners. Lost good people doing it. Will you help me? Amy looked at the picture of Lyra again. That little girl was probably taken to be sold or experimented on. 2 days later, Jake stood in the cargo bay of the Dancing Star, Amy Santos's modified freight hauler. The ship was not pretty to look at, but Amy had made many improvements to the engines and weapon systems during her years as an independent pilot. Zara sat quietly in the corner, her blue skin pale with worry. She had insisted on coming with them despite Jake's protests. Rex Morrison checked his equipment one more time, muttering complaints about getting too old for this kind of work. Okay, listen up, Amy said, as she gathered everyone around a holographic display showing Titan's Edge. This asteroid is basically a floating fortress. The Syndicate has been using it as their main base for 5 years. The display showed a large potato-shaped rock floating in space. The surface was covered with mining equipment, landing platforms, and weapon turrets. Lights indicated tunnels that went deep into the asteroid's core. How many people are on that thing? Jake asked. Maybe 200. Most of them are miners and technicians, but they have at least 50 armed guards. The real problem is their patrol ships. They have 6 fighters that patrol the area around the asteroid. Rex pointed to different areas on the display. The main docking bay is here on the north side. That's where all the official traffic goes. But there are smaller maintenance airlocks scattered around the surface. If we could get to one of those without being detected, how do we get past the patrol ships? Zara asked quietly. Amy smiled grimly. We don't fight them. We hide from them. She manipulated the display to show the asteroid belt around Titan's Edge. This whole area is full of floating rocks and ice. Chunks. The patrol ships can't watch everything at once. If we come in slow and quiet, staying close to the other asteroids, we might be able to reach the surface without being spotted. And then what? Jake asked. Then you go in, and I wait for you to call for pickup. But Jake, I want you to understand something. Once you're inside that facility, you're on your own. If something goes wrong, there's no way I can come get you. Jake nodded. He had been thinking about this moment for 2 days, and he had a plan. It was not a good plan, but it was the only one he could think of. I'm going in as a maintenance worker, he said. I've got fake identification papers and work clothes. The Syndicate uses a lot of contract labor, so one more repair technician shouldn't attract attention. What about security scans? Rex asked. They'll check you for weapons and communication devices. Jake held up his toolbox. Everything I need is in here. Basic tools that any maintenance worker would carry. Nothing that looks like a weapon or a communicator. Amy looked skeptical. Jake, even if you get inside, how are you going to find Lyra? That place is huge. I've studied the facility blueprints that Lisa got for me. The mining operations are all on the upper levels. The living quarters and storage areas are in the middle. But the deep levels, that's where they keep things they don't want anyone to know about. Zara spoke up. I can help with that. If I get close enough to Lyra, I can sense her. Altarians have a mental connection with their family members. Absolutely not, Jake said firmly. Zara, if they capture you, they'll have 2 hostages instead of 1. You stay on the ship. But I can help you find her faster. And you can get us all killed faster too. These people took your daughter because she's Altarian. What do you think? They'll do if they get their hands on her mother? Zara looked like she wanted to argue, but she knew Jake was right. She nodded reluctantly. All right, Amy said. Let's go over the timeline one more time. We approach Titan's Edge during their night shift when there are fewer people awake. Jake goes in through Maintenance Airlock 7 on the south side. Rex monitors communications to watch for alerts. I keep the ship ready for a fast departure. How long do I have? Jake asked. 6 hours maximum. After that, the day shift comes on and security gets tighter. Plus, the longer you're in there, the more likely someone will notice you don't belong. Jake felt his stomach tighten with nerves, but he tried not to show it. 6 hours should be enough. And if it's not? Rex asked. Jake met his eyes. Then you leave without me. Don't let them capture Zara too. The next 12 hours passed slowly as the dancing star made its way through the asteroid belt toward Titan's edge. Amy piloted carefully, using the larger asteroids as cover and keeping their engine output low to avoid detection. Jake spent the time going over the facility plans again and again. He memorized the locations of elevators, stairwells, and emergency exits. He practiced moving quietly in his maintenance coveralls and boots. You nervous? Rex asked during one of the quiet moments. Terrified, Jake admitted. But that little girl is counting on me. Her mother is counting on me. I can't let them down. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just another do-gooder who would get himself killed trying to save the galaxy. But you might actually pull this off. Why do you say that? Rex smiled. Because you think like a human. Everyone else who went after that kid was thinking like a warrior or a hunter. But you're thinking like a repairman. You're looking for the broken parts and figuring out how to fix them. As they got closer to Titan's edge, Amy's voice came over the ship's communication system. Okay, people, we're almost in position. Jake, you need to get ready. Jake put on his maintenance coveralls and checked his toolbox one more time. Inside, hidden among the normal tools, were items he hoped would help him rescue Lyra. A small plasma cutter that looked like a welding torch, a device that could override electronic locks, an emergency medical kit in case Lyra was hurt. Remember, Amy said as Jake prepared to leave the ship. Maintenance Airlock 7. I'll be monitoring your emergency beacon. If you activate it, I'll come running. But try not to activate it unless you absolutely have to. I understand. Zara grabbed Jake's arm as he headed for the airlock. Please bring her back, she whispered. She's all I have left. I will, Jake promised. I'll bring your daughter home. The trip from the Dancing Star to Titan's Edge took 30 minutes in a small maintenance pod. Jake drifted through the asteroid field, using tiny bursts from the pod's thrusters to avoid chunks of floating rock. As he got closer to the asteroid, Jake could see the massive mining operation clearly. Giant machines tore into the surface, extracting valuable minerals. Conveyor belts carried ore to processing plants. Bright lights turned the rocky surface into an industrial landscape. But underneath all that activity, Jake knew there were people being held against their will. Children like Lyra who had been stolen from their families and brought to this terrible place. Jake found Maintenance Airlock 7 exactly where the blueprints said it would be. The outer door was designed for repair, crews to enter and exit without going through the main docking bay. He connected his maintenance pod to the airlock and waited for the cycle to complete. When the inner door opened, Jake stepped into a narrow corridor lit by harsh fluorescent lights. The air smelled like recycled oxygen and industrial chemicals. He could hear the constant hum of machinery and the distant sound of mining equipment. So far, so good. He was inside. Jake consulted a wall map and oriented himself. According to his research, the detention areas would be in the lower levels, probably near the asteroid's core where they would be hardest to reach and escape from. He made his way through the corridors, trying to look like he belonged there. His coveralls had fake company logos and his identification badge looked official. Several times he passed other workers, but no one paid attention to him. Just another maintenance guy doing his job. The elevator ride to the lower levels seemed to take forever. Jake's heart pounded as the numbers on the display counted down. Level 5, Level 6, Level 7. Finally, the doors opened at Level 10, deep in the asteroid's core. The corridors here were different. The walls were thicker, and the doors were reinforced. This was not a mining level. This was where the syndicate kept their secrets. Jake moved carefully, listening for guards or security patrols. The facility seemed surprisingly quiet. Maybe most of the security was focused on the outer levels where visitors might try to break in. He checked room after room, using his lock override device to open sealed doors. Most of the rooms were empty or filled with equipment, but as he went deeper into the facility, he started finding things that made his blood run cold. Medical equipment designed for restraining patients, computers with files about genetic research and ability extraction, laboratories with examination tables that had restraint straps. The syndicate was not just trafficking people, they were experimenting on them. Jake's hands shook with anger as he continued his search. These people were monsters who treated sentient beings like laboratory animals. Whatever happened to him, he had to make sure they could never hurt anyone else. Then, in a corridor near the facility's center, he heard something that made him freeze. Crying. Someone was crying behind one of the sealed doors. Jake moved to the door and listened carefully. The crying was soft and muffled, but it sounded like a child. His heart raced as he used his override device to unlock the door. The room inside was small and dark, with bare metal walls and a single dim light. But it was not empty. There were children inside, at least a dozen of them, from different species, across the galaxy. They were sitting on simple cots and they all looked scared and hungry. Jake stepped into the dark room and immediately felt 12 pairs of frightened eyes looking at him. The children pressed themselves against the walls, afraid of another stranger who might hurt them. "It's okay," Jake whispered, raising his hands, to show he was not carrying weapons. "I'm here to help you." Lyra looked up from her corner. She was smaller than Jake had expected and much thinner than in the holographic picture her mother had shown him. Her silver hair was dirty and tangled, and there were dark circles under her purple eyes. "Are you another doctor?" she asked in a small, scared voice. "No, sweetheart. I'm a friend of your mother's. My name is Jake, and I'm here to take you home." Lyra's eyes went wide. "Mama? You know my mama? She's been looking for you for 3 months. She's been crying every day and asking everyone to help find you. She loves you very much." Tears started running down Lyra's face, but for the first time they were happy tears. "Is she here? Is Mama here? She's safe on a ship nearby, but first we need to get you and your friends out of this place." Jake looked around the room at the other children. There was a young boy with green-scaled skin who might have been from Reptilia Prime. A girl, with 4 arms who was probably from the arachnid colonies. Several human children who looked like they had been taken from frontier settlements. "How many guards are there on this level?" Jake asked quietly. 2 usually," said the 4-armed girl. "But they took Kip and Nara to the medical lab an hour ago. Sometimes the kids who go there don't come back." Jake felt sick thinking about what might be happening to those children, but he forced himself to focus on the ones he could save right now. "Listen carefully," he said. "I'm going to get you all out of here, but I need you to stay quiet and do exactly what I tell you. Can you do that?" The children nodded, hope starting to replace fear in their eyes. Jake activated his emergency beacon to signal Amy that he had found the children and needed pickup. Then he used his plasma cutter to disable the door lock, so the syndicate guards could not easily lock them in again. "Everyone hold hands," Jake said. "We're going to walk out of here together, and no one gets left behind." They made it halfway to the elevator before alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in the corridors and automated voices announced that there was a security breach on level 10. "Run," Jake said. They ran through the corridors as fast as the youngest children could manage. Behind them, Jake could hear heavy footsteps and shouting voices. The guards had discovered the empty detention room. The elevator seemed to take forever to arrive. When it finally did, Jake pushed all 12 children inside and hit the button for the surface level. As the doors closed, he could see armed guards running toward them down the corridor. "Are we safe now?" Lyra asked. "Not yet," Jake said honestly, "but we're going to be." The elevator opened on the surface level, and immediately they could hear more alarms. The entire facility was now on alert. Security guards were running in all directions, and Jake could see armed patrols heading for all the exits. "This way," Jake said, leading the children toward Maintenance Airlock 7 where he had entered the facility. But as they rounded a corner, they came face to face with 4 syndicate guards carrying energy rifles. "Stop right there," the leady guard shouted. "Release the subjects and surrender." Jake pushed the children behind him and faced the guards. "These are not subjects, they're children, and I'm taking them home. You're not taking anything anywhere, human. You just cost us millions of credits in research investments." The guard raised his rifle and Jake knew he was about to die. He had no weapons and no way to fight 4 armed men. But at least he had tried. At least Lyra would know her mother had not given up on her. Then something amazing happened. The lights in the corridor suddenly went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, but in that brief moment of darkness, Jake heard the sound of energy weapons firing and the thud of bodies hitting the floor. When the lights came back on, the 4 guards were unconscious on the ground. Standing over them were 3 people in maintenance coveralls carrying tools that definitely were not tools. "Sorry we're late," said a familiar voice. It was Bobby Martinez from the docking bay office. "Traffic was murder getting here." "Bobby? What are you doing here?" "Same thing you are, Jake. Helping kids get home to their families." Behind Bobby were Lisa Chang and 2 other humans Jake recognized from around the station. They were all carrying improvised weapons made from maintenance equipment. "How did you get here?" Jake asked, still confused. "Your emergency beacon," Lisa explained. "It broadcasts on a frequency that every human receiver in this sector picked up. When we realized what you were trying to do, we figured you might need backup." "But how did you know where to find me?" Bobby grinned. "Jake, you've been working on this station for 5 years. Everyone knows you're the guy who fixes things that can't be fixed. When word got out that you were going after slavers, every human within 3 systems wanted to help." As if to prove his point, Jake's communicator crackled to life with voices speaking in human languages from all over Earth. "This is Captain Grace Kelly on the cargo hauler New Horizon. We're 15 minutes out from Titan's Edge. Commander Pete Johnson here, leading a volunteer flotilla from the Centauri colonies. ETA 20 minutes. This is the merchant vessel. Lucky strike. We've got medical supplies and food for the rescued children." Jake stared at his communicator in amazement. "How many ships are coming?" "Every human ship within 2 days' travel," Bobby said proudly. Word spread through the human communication networks like wildfire. Merchants, explorers, scientists, even a few military patrols on leave. Everyone who could get here is coming. More voices continued to report in. The research vessel Discovery with a full medical team. The passenger liner Terra Nova carrying volunteer social workers. Even the luxury yacht Golden Dream, whose wealthy owner had decided to help instead of taking his scheduled vacation. "But why?" Jake asked. "Most of these people don't even know me," Lisa smiled. "Because you're human, Jake. And when one human is in trouble trying to do the right thing, we all come running. It's what we do." The children looked amazed as they listened to the communication chatter. They had never seen anything like this before. In their cultures, help came from official authorities or family members. But humans were different. Humans helped strangers because it was right. "Okay," Jake said, feeling hope for the first time since the alarm started. "Let's get these kids to the surface." They moved through the facility corridors with Bobby's team providing security. The syndicate guards they encountered were overwhelmed and confused. They had trained to fight armies and organized attacks, not small groups of humans with improvised weapons who seemed to appear out of nowhere. As they reached the main surface level, Jake could see through the facility windows that space around. Titan's Edge was filling with ships, human ships of every size and type, all coming to help rescue stolen children. The syndicate's patrol fighters tried to intercept the incoming vessels, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. For every syndicate ship, there were 10 human vessels, and the humans were not fighting like a military force. They were fighting like an angry swarm, covering each other and coordinating through their communication networks. "This is Commander Johnson to all human vessels," came a voice over the communicator. "The syndicate fighters are withdrawing. Repeat, enemy fighters are retreating. The sky is clear for rescue operations." Jake felt tears in his eyes as he watched the rescue fleet take control of the space around the asteroid. He had expected to die trying to save one little girl. Instead, he had started something that brought together humans from across the galaxy. "Jake," Lyra said, tugging on his coveralls. "Are all those ships here for us?" "They're here because humans believe every child deserves to go home," Jake said. "And because your mama never stopped believing someone would find you." As they reached Maintenance Airlock 7, Jake could see the Dancing Star waiting for them with dozens of other human ships providing escort. The rescue fleet had formed a protective wall around the asteroid, making sure no one could escape, with more victims. "This is Amy Santos," came a voice over his communicator. "Jake, I've got your package ready for delivery. and I've got someone here who really wants to see her daughter." Jake looked down at Lyra, who was bouncing with excitement, despite everything she had been through. "Ready to see your mama?" he asked. "Yes," Lyra said with the biggest smile Jake had ever seen. "Yes, please, I want to go home." As they moved toward the airlock, Jake realized that something incredible had happened. He had set out to save one child, but instead, he had shown the galaxy what humans could do when they worked together. Every ship in that rescue fleet carried people who had dropped everything to help strangers in need. The Syndicate's facility was being overwhelmed by humans who had turned mining equipment into weapons, maintenance tools into lockpicks, and cargo ships into rescue vessels. It was not pretty or elegant, but it was working, because that's what humans did. They saw a problem and fixed it, no matter how impossible it seemed. The airlock door of the Dancing Star opened, and Jake stepped through with 12 rescued children behind him. The ship's cargo bay had been quickly converted into a temporary medical station, with human volunteers setting up cots and medical equipment, but Jake only had eyes for one person. Zara stood in the middle of the cargo bay, her purple eyes wide with disbelief and hope. She had been waiting for 3 months to see her daughter again, and now the moment was finally here. "Mama!" Lyra broke away from the group of children and ran across the cargo bay. Zara dropped to her knees and caught her daughter in a hug that seemed to last forever. Both of them were crying and laughing at the same time, speaking rapidly in their native Altarian language. Their silver hair seemed to glow brighter as they held each other. Jake watched the reunion with tears in his own eyes. This was why he had risked everything. This moment right here when a mother got her child back. "Is that your mama?" asked the green-scaled boy from Reptilia Prime. "Yes," Lyra said proudly, not letting go of Zara. "This is my mama. She never stopped looking for me." The other rescued children gathered around to meet Zara, who wiped her tears and smiled at each of them. Even though they were from different species and different worlds, they had all been through the same terrible experience. They were a family now, bound together by survival. "Jake Murphy," Zara said, standing up with Lyra still clinging to her side. "I promised to reward you with anything you wanted. My body, my life, everything I own. What do you want?" Jake looked at Lyra's happy face and Zara's grateful tears. "I already got my reward. I got to see you two together again. But that's not enough. You risked your life. You brought together an entire fleet to save us. There must be something." "Actually, there is one thing," Jake said with a small smile. "I want you to help other families like yours. There are more children out there who need to be found, more parents who need hope." Zara nodded firmly. Yes, we will do that. We will make sure no family suffers like we did." Amy Santos came over the ship's communication system. "Jake, we're getting reports from the other rescue ships. The human fleet has secured the entire Titan's Edge facility. The Syndicate guards have surrendered, and teams are searching every level for more prisoners." "How many more did we find?" Jake asked. 43 additional captives so far. Adults and children from 12 different species. The medical ships are taking the ones who need immediate treatment. Jake felt a surge of pride in what they had accomplished. When he had started this mission, he had hoped to save one little girl. Instead, they had shut down an entire trafficking operation and freed dozens of innocent people. "There's more," Amy continued. "Commander Johnson is reporting that they found the Syndicate's computer records, names, locations, shipping routes, everything we need to track down their other facilities." Bobby Martinez, who had stayed aboard to help coordinate the rescue, looked up from a communication console. "Jake, you need to hear this. We're getting messages from human ships all over the galaxy. They're volunteering to search other Syndicate locations." "What do you mean?" "I mean, word of what happened here is spreading. Humans everywhere are hearing about the rescue and they want to help. Merchant captains are changing their shipping routes to check for illegal facilities. Exploration teams are offering to search remote systems. Even civilian ship owners are forming volunteer groups." Lisa Chang came over with a data pad showing incoming messages. "Look at this, Jake. The captain of a luxury cruise ship wants to donate his vessel to help transport rescued captives back to their homeworlds. A group of human doctors is organizing mobile medical clinics. Mining companies are offering to help search asteroid fields. Jake stared at the data pad in amazement. The list of volunteers went on for pages. Humans from every profession and every corner of human space were stepping forward to help. Why? Asked the four-armed girl from the arachnid colonies. Why are they all helping people they don't know? Jake knelt down to her level. Because that's what humans do. When we see someone who needs help, we help them. It doesn't matter if they're human or alien, rich or poor, important or ordinary. If someone needs help, we try to give it. Even if it's dangerous? Especially if it's dangerous. The more someone needs help, the more humans want to help them. Rex. Morrison came over from where he had been talking to other ship captains. Jake, I've got some interesting news. The Galactic Trade Council wants to talk to you. The Trade Council? What do they want? They want to officially thank you for exposing the Syndicate's operations. Apparently, the Syndicate has been interfering with legal trade routes for years, but no one could prove it. What you found here gives them everything they need to shut down the entire organization. That's good news. There's more. They're offering you a position as a special investigator. Good pay, official authority, your own ship. You could make a real career out of this. Jake thought about the offer for a moment. It sounded important and exciting. But then he looked around the cargo bay at the rescued children and their relieved families who were arriving on other ships. Thanks, but no, Jake said. I'm just a mechanic. I fix things that are broken. And right now, the thing that needs fixing most is right here. What do you mean? Jake gestured to the children. These kids have been through something terrible. They're going to need time to heal and people to help them. I want to make sure they get home safely and that their families have the support they need. Zara, who had been listening to the conversation while holding Lyra, stepped forward. Jake is right. The rescue is only the beginning. These children will need counseling, medical care, and help readjusting to normal life. Their families will need support too. What are you suggesting? Rex asked. I'm suggesting we create something permanent, Zara said. An organization dedicated to finding missing people and helping trafficking victims. We have the Human Volunteer Network. We have ships and resources. We have the experience now. Jake nodded. The Zara Foundation for Missing Persons has a nice ring to it. The Jake Murphy Foundation, Zara corrected. This was your idea. Your courage started all of this. How about we just call it the Hope Foundation, Jake suggested. Because that's what we're really giving people. Hope that their loved ones can come home. Over the next several hours, ships from the human rescue fleet began departing to take the rescued captives back to their homeworlds. Each departure was a celebration as families were reunited or children were returned to their communities. Jake watched from the Dancing Stars observation deck as the New Horizon prepared to leave with several of the human children aboard. Captain Grace Kelly had volunteered to personally deliver them to their families on the frontier colonies. You know, Amy said, joining Jake at the window. When I first met you, I thought you were crazy for wanting to take on the Syndicate. I was crazy. This should have been impossible. But it worked. And not just because we got lucky. It worked. Because you made people believe that impossible things are possible if enough people care. Jake thought about that. 3 days ago, he had been just a mechanic fixing broken engines on a space station. Now he was surrounded by evidence that one person's decision to help could change the galaxy. Amy, can I ask you a favor? Sure. Will, you help me get these kids home? All of them. I want to make sure every single child gets back to their family safely. Amy smiled. Jake, after what I've seen here, I think you could ask any human in the galaxy for a favor and they'd say yes. But you don't need to ask. We're all in this together now. A month later, Jake was back on Kepler Station, working in his repair shop. But things were different now. The small workshop had become the unofficial headquarters of the Hope Foundation, with communication equipment donated by human merchants and volunteers coming and going at all hours. Zara had kept her promise to help other families. She had used her savings and donations from grateful parents to set up offices on a dozen worlds, staffed by volunteers who helped search for missing persons and support trafficking victims. The syndicate's other facilities had been found and shut down. More than 200 people had been rescued and returned to their families. The human volunteer network had grown to include thousands of ships and tens of thousands of people. Jake was installing a new engine part when he heard familiar footsteps behind him. He turned to see Zara and Lyra entering his workshop. "How are my favorite customers?" Jake asked with a smile. Lyra, who looked much healthier now with clean clothes and bright eyes, ran over to hug him. "Uncle Jake, Mama says we can help you with the new mission." "New mission?" Zara held up a data pad with information about missing persons cases. "We've received 43 new requests for help this week. Families from all over the galaxy who heard about what we do." Jake looked at the list of missing people: children, adults, entire families, each one representing someone's broken heart and desperate hope. "Well," Jake said, wiping his hands on his coveralls, "I guess we better get to work." As he prepared to help another family find their missing loved ones, Jake thought about how much his life had changed. He was still just a mechanic who fixed broken things. But now he understood that sometimes the most important things to fix were not machines.